Once upon a time, in a small, forgotten town, there was an old, abandoned mansion that everyone avoided. The mansion had a dark history. It was said to be haunted by the spirits of a family who had mysteriously vanished one Halloween night many years ago. One chilly October evening, a group of friends decided to explore the mansion as a dare. They gathered their flashlights and courage and made their way through the overgrown path leading to the mansion. As they approached, the wind howled, and the trees seemed to whisper warnings. The front door creaked open, revealing a grand but decaying interior. Dust covered the furniture, and cobwebs hung from the chandeliers. The friends split up to explore different parts of the mansion. They soon discovered strange symbols etched into the walls and eerie portraits that seemed to watch their every move. In the basement, they found an old, dusty book filled with cryptic writings and drawings of dark rituals. As they flipped through the pages, a chilling breeze swept through the room, extinguishing their flashlights. Panic set in as they heard footsteps echoing through the halls above them. Suddenly, one of the friends screamed. The others rushed to find her, only to see her standing frozen, staring at a ghostly figure in the corner. It was the spirit of the mansion's former owner, his eyes filled with sorrow and rage. He pointed to the book and whispered, "You must leave now, or suffer the same fate." Terrified, the friends bolted for the exit, but the mansion seemed to come alive, with doors slamming shut and walls shifting to block their path. They finally reached the front door, but it wouldn't budge. Desperate, they recited a passage from the book, hoping it would break the curse. The mansion shook violently, and the ghostly figure reappeared, now joined by the rest of his family. They surrounded the friends, their faces twisted in anguish. Just as the friends felt all hope was lost, the spirits began to fade, and the front door swung open. The friends stumbled out into the night, gasping for breath. As they looked back, the mansion seemed to shimmer and then disappear, leaving only an empty field behind. They never spoke of that night again, but they knew they had narrowly escaped the clutches of the haunted mansion and its restless spirits. In a small, isolated village, there was a legend about an ancient forest known as the Whispering Woods. The villagers believed that anyone who entered the woods on Halloween night would never return. The forest was said to be cursed, haunted by vengeful spirits who lured unsuspecting souls into the depths of the darkness. One Halloween, a group of teenagers decided to test the legend. They were skeptical and eager for an adventure. Armed with flashlights and bravado, they ventured into the Whispering Woods as the sun set, casting long shadows through the twisted trees. As they walked deeper into the forest, they noticed the air growing colder and the sounds of the village fading away. Strange whispers began to surround them, seeming to come from all directions. The friends tried to laugh it off, but the whispers grew louder and more insistent, calling their names and beckoning them further into the woods. Suddenly, one of the friends, Sarah, screamed and pointed at a figure in the distance. It was a woman in tattered clothing, her face pale and eyes hollow. She reached out a bony hand and whispered, "Help me, please." The group hesitated, but Sarah, feeling a strange compulsion, stepped forward. As Sarah approached the woman, the ground beneath her feet gave way, and she fell into a hidden pit. The others rushed to help, but the pit was deep, and they could barely see Sarah at the bottom. The whispers grew louder, now filled with malice and anger. Desperate to save their friend, they formed a makeshift rope from their jackets and lowered it into the pit. Sarah grabbed hold, but as they pulled her up, the whispers turned into screams. The woman in tattered clothing reappeared, her face twisted in rage. She lunged at the friends, her hands like icy claws. The friends managed to pull Sarah to safety, but the woman grabbed one of them, dragging him into the darkness. The others could only watch in horror as their friend disappeared, his screams echoing through the forest. Terrified, the remaining friends fled the Whispering Woods, the whispers and screams following them all the way back to the village. They never spoke of that night again, but they knew the legend was true. The forest was cursed, and the spirits within would never rest. Years later, on Halloween night, the villagers still hear the whispers and screams coming from the Whispering Woods, a chilling reminder of the dark fate that awaits those who dare to enter. In the small, sleepy town of Ravenswood, there was an old, abandoned mansion known as the Bloodstone Manor. The mansion had been vacant for decades, its once grand architecture now shrouded in vines and decay. The townsfolk whispered about the horrors that took place within its walls, but no one dared to venture close. One Halloween night, a group of adventurous friends decided to explore the manor. They had heard the stories, but were eager to prove that they were just myths. The group consisted of Sarah, a brave and curious soul, Mike, the skeptic, Jessica, who always loved a good scare, and Tom, who was reluctantly dragged along. As they approached the manor, the air grew colder, and an eerie silence enveloped them. The front door creaked open with a sinister groan, as if inviting them inside. The foyer was dimly lit by the moonlight filtering through the broken windows, casting long, twisted shadows on the walls. The group split up to cover more ground. Sarah and Mike headed upstairs, while Jessica and Tom explored the ground floor. The air was thick with the scent of mildew and something metallic, like blood. Sarah and Mike found themselves in a grand library, its shelves lined with dusty, ancient books. As they examined the room, Sarah noticed a peculiar book on a pedestal in the center. The book was bound in what appeared to be human skin, and its pages were stained with dark, crimson blood. As she opened it, a cold wind blew through the room, extinguishing their flashlights. Meanwhile, Jessica and Tom stumbled upon the dining room. The long table was set for a feast, but the plates were covered in a thick layer of dust. Suddenly, the chandelier above them flickered to life, casting an unnatural, red glow. They heard a faint dripping sound and looked up to see blood seeping from the ceiling, pooling on the table below. Back in the library, Sarah and Mike heard a low, guttural growl. They turned to see a figure emerging from the shadows, a ghostly apparition of a woman in a blood-soaked gown. Her eyes were hollow, and her mouth twisted into a grotesque smile. She raised a bony finger and pointed at them, her voice echoing through the room. "You shouldn't have come here." Terrified, Sarah and Mike bolted from the library, only to find the staircase had vanished. The walls seemed to close in on them, and the temperature dropped further. They could hear the ghostly woman's laughter growing louder, closer. Jessica and Tom, now drenched in blood, tried to find their way back to the foyer. They were met with a maze of hallways that seemed to shift and change, trapping them deeper within the manor. The sound of footsteps echoed behind them, but when they turned, no one was there. Panic set in as they realized they were not alone. In a desperate attempt to escape, Sarah and Mike found a hidden door behind a tapestry. It led them to a basement, where the air was thick with the stench of decay. They saw rows of coffins, each one marked with the names of previous explorers who had never returned. The coffins began to shake, and skeletal hands clawed their way out, reaching for them. Jessica and Tom, now separated, faced their own horrors. Tom found himself in a room filled with mirrors, each one reflecting a twisted, bloodied version of himself. He tried to break the mirrors, but they only multiplied, surrounding him with his own terrifying reflections. Jessica stumbled upon a nursery where ghostly children played with blood-stained toys. They sang a haunting lullaby, their eyes void of life. As she backed away, she felt a cold hand grab her ankle, pulling her to the ground. She screamed, but her voice was swallowed by the darkness. In the basement, Sarah and Mike fought off the skeletal remains, but their strength was waning. Just when they thought they were done for, a hidden passageway opened, revealing a tunnel leading outside. They scrambled through, emerging in the overgrown garden. They could still hear the ghostly woman's laughter echoing behind them as they ran for their lives. Jessica and Tom were never seen again. The townsfolk added their names to the list of those claimed by the Bloodstone Manor. Sarah and Mike, forever haunted by their experience, warned others to stay away. But every Halloween, new thrill seekers would come, drawn by the allure of the haunted mansion, only to become the next victims of its blood-soaked curse. And so, the legend of Bloodstone Manor lived on, a chilling reminder that some places are best left undisturbed. In the small, eerie town of Ravenswood, there was an old, abandoned mansion that everyone avoided. It was said that the house was cursed, and those who dared to enter never came out the same. One chilly Halloween night, a group of friends decided to test their courage and explore the mansion. As they approached the house, the wind howled through the trees, and the moon cast an eerie glow on the broken windows. The front door creaked open with a loud groan, and they stepped inside. Dust covered every surface, and cobwebs hung from the ceiling like ghostly drapes. The air was thick with the scent of decay, and the floorboards creaked under their weight. They split up to cover more ground, each armed with only a flashlight. In the dim light, strange shadows danced on the walls, and the friends felt as if they were being watched. One by one, they began to experience strange occurrences. Emily heard whispers calling her name from the darkness. Jake felt a cold hand brush against his arm. Sarah saw a figure darting in and out of the shadows. As they ventured deeper into the mansion, they stumbled upon a hidden room. Inside, they found old, dusty journals that belonged to the previous owner, a man named Dr. Blackwood. The journals detailed his experiments with dark magic and his descent into madness. He had been trying to summon spirits from the beyond, and it seemed he had succeeded, but at a terrible cost. Suddenly, the door slammed shut, trapping them inside. The temperature dropped, and a thick fog filled the room. The friends could hear footsteps echoing in the hallway outside. Panic set in as they realized they were not alone. The spirits of Dr. Blackwood's failed experiments had been awakened, and they were not happy. The friends tried to escape, but the spirits seemed to be toying with them, leading them deeper into the mansion's twisted corridors. They saw glimpses of ghostly figures, heard disembodied voices, and felt icy fingers gripping their arms. The mansion seemed to come alive, its walls shifting and changing, trapping them in a nightmarish labyrinth. As the night wore on, the friends were separated, each facing their own terrifying ordeal. Emily found herself in a room filled with mirrors, each reflecting a different version of herself, all of them terrified. Jake was chased by a shadowy figure that seemed to melt into the walls. Sarah stumbled upon a hidden basement, where she discovered the remains of Dr. Blackwood's victims, their eyes wide with eternal horror. Just as it seemed all hope was lost, the friends managed to reunite in the mansion's grand hall. They found an old, tattered book that seemed to hold the key to breaking the curse. With trembling hands, they recited the incantation written inside. The mansion shook, and the spirits let out a deafening wail before vanishing into thin air. The front door creaked open, and the friends stumbled outside, gasping for breath. They vowed never to speak of that night again, but the memory of the mansion's horrors would haunt them forever. As they walked away, the house seemed to sigh, settling back into its eerie silence, waiting for its next unwitting visitors. Once upon a time in a small town, much like St. Louisburg, there was an old, abandoned mansion at the edge of the woods. The townsfolk whispered that it was haunted by the ghost of a woman named Eliza, who had mysteriously vanished a century ago on Halloween night. Every year, on the anniversary of her disappearance, strange things would happen. Lights would flicker, eerie noises would echo through the halls, and some even claimed to have seen Eliza's ghost wandering the grounds, searching for something she had lost. One Halloween, a group of brave friends decided to spend the night in the mansion to uncover the truth. They brought flashlights, snacks, and a Ouija board, determined to make contact with Eliza's spirit. As the clock struck midnight, they gathered in the dusty old parlor and began their seance. At first, nothing happened, but then the temperature dropped suddenly, and a cold breeze swept through the room. The Ouija board's planchette began to move on its own, spelling out a chilling message: "Find my locket." The friends, though terrified, decided to search the mansion for the locket. They split up, exploring the dark, creaky rooms. In the attic, one of them stumbled upon an old chest. Inside, they found a beautiful, antique locket with a picture of Eliza inside. As soon as they touched the locket, the ghost of Eliza appeared before them. She looked sad but grateful. She explained that she had been searching for her locket for a century, and now that it was found, she could finally rest in peace. With a final, grateful smile, Eliza's ghost faded away, and the mansion fell silent. The friends left the mansion, feeling a mix of relief and awe. They had uncovered the mystery of Eliza's ghost and helped her find peace. From that night on, the mansion was no longer haunted, and the townsfolk could finally put the legend of Eliza to rest. But every Halloween, the friends would gather and remember their spooky adventure, grateful for the experience and the bond it had created between them. In the heart of a dense, ancient forest, hidden from the world, lay the village of Eldergrove. The village was shrouded in mystery and fear, a place where the sun rarely pierced through the thick canopy of trees, and the air was perpetually heavy with mist. Eldergrove was a place where time seemed to stand still, and the villagers lived in constant dread of the unknown. It was said that Eldergrove was cursed, haunted by a malevolent entity known only as the Whisperer. The Whisperer was a shadowy figure that lurked in the darkness, feeding on the fears and nightmares of those who dared to enter its domain. The villagers spoke of it in hushed tones, sharing tales of its ghastly deeds and the horrors it had inflicted upon those who crossed its path. One chilly autumn evening, as the wind howled through the trees and the moon cast an eerie glow over the village, a young woman named Eliza arrived in Eldergrove. She was an outsider, a traveler seeking refuge from a storm that had caught her off guard. The villagers eyed her warily, their faces etched with worry and suspicion. They knew that anyone who entered Eldergrove rarely left unscathed. Eliza found shelter in a small, decrepit inn at the edge of the village. The innkeeper, a frail old man with a haunted look in his eyes, warned her of the dangers that lurked in the forest. "Stay inside after dark," he whispered, his voice trembling. "The Whisperer comes out at night, and it shows no mercy." Curiosity and a sense of adventure drove Eliza to ignore the innkeeper's warning. She had heard tales of haunted places and ghostly apparitions, but had never experienced anything supernatural herself. Determined to uncover the truth behind the village's fear, she ventured into the forest as darkness fell. The forest was a labyrinth of twisted trees and gnarled roots, their branches reaching out like skeletal hands. The air grew colder, and an unsettling silence enveloped her. As she walked deeper into the woods, she felt an oppressive presence, as if unseen eyes were watching her every move. Suddenly, A chilling whisper echoed through the trees, sending shivers down her spine. Eliza! The voice was barely audible, a ghostly murmur that seemed to come from all directions. She spun around, her heart pounding in her chest, but saw nothing but shadows. Determined to find the source of the voice, Eliza pressed on, her footsteps crunching on the fallen leaves. The whisper grew louder, more insistent, and she could feel a cold breath on the back of her neck. Panic set in, but she refused to turn back. As she reached a clearing, the moonlight revealed a dilapidated cabin, its windows shattered and its door hanging ajar. The whispering ceased, replaced by an eerie silence. Eliza approached the cabin cautiously, her hand trembling as she pushed the door open. Inside, the air was thick with the stench of decay. The walls were covered in strange symbols, etched in what appeared to be dried blood. In the center of the room stood a mirror, its surface cracked and tarnished. Eliza felt an inexplicable pull towards the mirror, as if it were calling to her. As she gazed into the mirror, her reflection seemed to waver and distort. The room around her began to spin, and she felt a sudden, overwhelming sense of dread. The whisperer materialized behind her, a shadowy figure with hollow eyes and a sinister grin. "Welcome, Eliza," it hissed, its voice a chilling blend of malice and mockery. "I've been waiting for you." Eliza tried to scream, but no sound escaped her lips. The whisperer's cold, bony fingers wrapped around her throat, and she felt her strength ebbing away. The last thing she saw before darkness consumed her was her own terrified reflection, trapped in the mirror's glass. The villagers spoke of Eliza in hushed tones, another lost soul claimed by the whisperer. The forest remained a place of fear and shadows, and the legend of the whisperer continued to haunt the village, a chilling reminder of the horrors that lurked in the darkness. On a stormy night, Emily was reading alone when the power went out. Grabbing a flashlight, she heard a tapping sound from the basement. Investigating, she found an old mirror hiding a small door. She opened it to find a dark passageway. As she ventured inside, the tapping stopped and her flashlight died. In the darkness, a cold breath whispered, "I've been waiting for you." Emily turned, but saw nothing. She tried to escape, but the door had vanished. Emily was never seen again, and the house remained haunted by the eerie tapping.